Principal Archivist Cuttle moved through the crystalline halls of the Galactic Historical Institute with uncharacteristic haste, her normally pristine robes billowing behind her. The silver data crystal in her hand pulsed with an urgent light that matched her racing heartbeats. After 3 centuries of meticulous archaeological work, this discovery would shatter everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The massive doors to the High Council's emergency chamber parted before her, revealing 24 of the most prominent xenohistorians in known space. Their varied forms, from the gaseous Mord to the crystalline Kex, all turned to face her as she entered. "Honorable Council." Cuttle's voice wavered slightly as she inserted the crystal into the central projector. "What we found in the ruins of Earth's Martian colony changes everything we thought we knew about the evolution of combat." The hologram blazed to life, showing a perfectly preserved military bunker buried deep beneath Mars' red surface. The timestamp made several council members recoil. It predated the formation of the Galactic Alliance by over 300 years. "Impossible," breathed Director Venn, his photoreceptors dimming in disbelief. No species had developed organized warfare before the Great Contact. The concept of systematic violence emerged only after multiple civilizations began competing for resources. Hull expanded the hologram, revealing rows of meticulously maintained weapons, tactical displays, and most damning of all, training manuals that detailed complex battle strategies. These humans didn't develop warfare after meeting other species. They brought it with them to the stars. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices of denial and debate. Cuttle waited for the shock to subside before continuing. "The evidence suggests humans have been waging war against themselves for thousands of years before achieving spaceflight. They didn't learn combat from alien contact. They invented it independently." "But that defies all known sociological models," protested Professor Zigsnil, their tendrils writhing in agitation. "Warfare requires the concept of organized opposition. Without external species for comparison, how could they have conceived of such things?" Cuttle activated another recording. The hologram shifted to show historical footage recovered from the base, scenes of ancient human conflicts spanning centuries. The council watched in stunned silence as the images displayed everything from primitive battlefield formations to modern tactical operations. "They fought among themselves," Cuttle explained. "Different tribes, nations, ideologies. Humans found reasons to organize into opposing forces long before they knew other sentient species existed. And in doing so, they developed something unique in the galaxy: natural martial intuition." The implications hung heavy in the air. Every other known species had to be taught the concepts of warfare through careful study and simulation. Even the aggressive Arcs, long considered the galaxy's premier warriors, had required decades of training to grasp basic tactical concepts that human children seemed to understand instinctively. "There's more," Cuttle continued, her voice growing grave. "We've analyzed their combat doctrines. Humans didn't just practice warfare, they revolutionized it with each generation. Their entire technological development was driven by military innovation. What we considered to be primitive human technology was actually just the tip of a vast martial iceberg." Director Van raised a limb for attention. "Are you suggesting that humans are inherently more capable warriors than established combat species like the Arcs?" "I'm suggesting something far more significant," Cuttle replied. "Humans aren't just capable warriors. They're the original warriors. Every combat doctrine in the galaxy, every strategic principle we take for granted, was independently developed by humans millennia before we thought such concepts existed." The council chamber fell into uneasy silence as the implications sank in. The galaxy had patronizingly admitted humans to their ranks as a developing species, all while sitting on a powder keg of martial capability they hadn't recognized. "There's one final detail," Cuttle added, her voice barely above a whisper. "We found their combat simulations. Humans didn't just train for the wars they fought. They imagined and prepared for every possible type of conflict, including," she paused, "including warfare against technologically superior alien species." The chamber erupted again, this time in genuine alarm. Professor Zixanil's voice cut through the chaos. Are you saying they prepared for war against us before they even knew we existed? Not exactly, Catul replied. They prepared for everything. Their tactical simulations account for scenarios we hadn't even conceived of when we first contacted them. They weren't specifically preparing for war against us. They were preparing for any war, against any opponent, under any circumstances. And we've been treating them as primitives, Director Venn observed quietly, restricting their military development, limiting their expansion, all while sitting on their doorstep with our guard down. Catul nodded solemnly. The question isn't whether humans are capable warriors. The question is, what happens now that they know we've been underestimating them all this time? The hologram continued to play, showing scene after scene of human military evolution. The council members watched in silence, each contemplating the same unsettling thought. They had discovered that humanity wasn't just another species learning to fight. They were the original warriors of the galaxy, and they had been patiently playing along with restrictions imposed by species who were, in truth, mere beginners at a game humans had mastered millennia ago. The real question was, how long would they continue to play along? The Galactic Defense Academy's observation deck buzzed with nervous energy as the most accomplished military theorists in known space gathered to witness something unprecedented. Below in the combat simulation chamber, a single human instructor faced off against 20 of the Academy's top graduates. Admiral Kten readjusted her sensory membranes, ensuring she wouldn't miss a detail. After the shocking discoveries on Mars, the Council had reluctantly agreed to allow this demonstration. As head of military education, she needed to understand exactly what they were dealing with. Begin simulation, she commanded. The chamber transformed into a rocky battlefield. The Academy graduates, representing 12 different species, took up textbook-perfect defensive positions. Their opponent, Captain Sarah Chen, stood alone on the opposite side, armed with nothing but standard-issue equipment. What happened next defied centuries of military doctrine. Instead of following established engagement protocols, Chen seemed to vanish into the terrain. The graduates' sophisticated sensor arrays struggled to track her movement patterns, which appeared random but somehow deliberate. Impossible, muttered General Krutax of the Arcs, his scales bristling. She's violating every principle of tactical movement we've developed over the last millennium. No, Chen corrected quietly. She's operating on principles that predate our understanding of warfare itself. One by one, the graduates found themselves eliminated from the simulation. Chen materialized from impossible angles, exploiting cover in ways that shouldn't have worked, using the terrain itself as a weapon. She didn't just outfight them. She seemed to anticipate their every move, countering strategies that had been mathematically proven optimal. When the last graduate fell, Chen stood calmly in the center of the chamber. The simulation faded, leaving the observers in stunned silence. Would anyone care to explain what we just witnessed? Senri asked the assembled experts. Professor Talvik, the Academy's Chief of Strategic Studies, stepped forward. The human utilized what we would consider tactical errors, exposed positions, inefficient movements, seemingly random decisions. Yet each mistake was actually a calculated risk that paid off. It's as if she's operating on an entirely different level of combat understanding. Different, or more fundamental. Chen's voice came through the observation deck speakers. Your military doctrine is built on theoretical models. Ours was written in blood and necessity over thousands of years. We didn't develop our tactics in simulators. We developed them in real combat, where survival was the only measure of success. The assembled aliens shifted uncomfortably. Their species had developed warfare as an academic exercise, a response to theoretical conflicts that might arise between civilizations. Humans had forged their combat expertise through actual battle, generation after generation. Show them the heritage footage, Chen requested. The chamber's projectors activated again, displaying scenes from Earth's military history. Ancient warriors charging across battlefields, medieval knights executing complex maneuvers, modern special forces conducting operations that seem to defy physics. Every human child grows up playing war games, Chen explained. We don't need to be taught tactical thinking. We inherit it. What you see as complex military theory, we see as instinct refined by millennia of practical application. Admiral Henry watched the footage with growing understanding. You're not just warriors, she realized. You're natural predators who developed intelligence without losing your hunting instincts. Close, Chen smiled. We're tool makers who turned our entire planet into a combat laboratory. Every environment, every possible tactical situation, we fought there. Desert, jungle, Arctic, urban, warfare shaped our development as a species. General Krutax bristled. Are you claiming humans are superior warriors? Not superior, Chen corrected. More experienced. Your species had to develop combat theory from scratch. We had a head start of several thousand years. The real question is, what could we accomplish by combining your advanced technology with our innate understanding of warfare? The implications hung heavy in the air. The galaxy had been treating humans as primitive newcomers to warfare, when in reality they were looking at combat veterans with experience that predated galactic civilization itself. There's something else you should know, Chen added, her expression growing serious. What you just saw wasn't special forces training or advanced tactics. This is basic human combat intuition. Every one of our soldiers carries this inheritance. The observation deck erupted in murmurs. If this was basic human capability, what were their elite warriors capable of? I propose an exchange, Admiral Henry announced suddenly. We've been trying to teach humans our way of warfare. Perhaps it's time we learned from them instead. With respect, Admiral, Chen replied. That's what we've been waiting for. Humanity doesn't want to dominate galactic warfare. We want to ensure the galaxy never needs our expertise. But if that day comes, we'll be ready. We've always been ready. As the observers filed out, Professor Talvik remained, watching Chen begin another simulation. We thought we were teaching them, he mused. All this time, they were the teachers, patiently waiting for us to be ready for the lesson. The galaxy was about to learn what it truly meant to study warfare from its original masters. The question wasn't whether humanity would reshape galactic military doctrine. It was how much of their martial heritage they had yet to reveal. And in the depths of space, that question would soon be answered. The massive view screen aboard the Galactic Alliance flagship, Eternal Vigilance, displayed a scene of unprecedented crisis. The Proxima Centauri system, humanity's first extrasolar colony, was under siege by an unknown force that had appeared from the depths of uncharted space. 3 weeks of conventional military response had resulted in nothing but casualties and retreat. High Admiral Zexthor watched in frustration as another squadron of advanced Alliance vessels withdrew from the battlefield, their supposedly impenetrable shields overwhelmed by the enemy's bizarre attack patterns. The unknown hostiles fought like nothing the galaxy had ever encountered, until now. They're using chaos theory in their attack formations, observed Lieutenant Commander James Chen, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere on the bridge. Just like the Mongol cavalry did on Earth, but in 3 dimensions. The alien officers turned to stare at the human advisor. Since the revelations about humanity's martial heritage, Chen had been assigned to the Alliance fleet as a historical consultant. Now he was suggesting that ancient Earth tactics could explain this seemingly impossible enemy strategy. Explain, Zexthor demanded. Chen stepped forward, manipulating the tactical display. The enemy isn't using random attacks. They're creating controlled chaos. Each unit appears to move independently, but they're actually forming fluid, adaptive patterns. We used similar tactics in our horse-mounted warfare centuries ago. Preposterous, General Kuller of the Arkst battle fleet interjected. How could primitive Earth cavalry tactics possibly apply to modern space combat? Because the principles of warfare don't change, Chen replied calmly. Only the battlefield does. And humans have been adapting to new battlefields longer than any species in the galaxy. As if to emphasize his point, another Alliance battle group reported heavy losses. Their mathematically perfect formations, developed through centuries of theoretical warfare studies, were being torn apart by the enemy's seemingly chaotic approach. "Give me tactical control," Chen requested suddenly. "Let me show you how humanity would handle this." The bridge fell silent. No human had ever been given command of an Alliance fleet. The implications were staggering. After a long moment, Admiral Zexthor nodded. "The conventional approach has failed. Show us what humanity's martial heritage can do." Chen's fingers flew across the tactical console. Instead of the usual rigid formations, he began reorganizing the fleet into fluid, asymmetric groups. "Modern problems, ancient solutions," he muttered. "First, we counter their chaos with our own." The Alliance ships, under Chen's guidance, began moving in patterns that seemed random but carried an underlying purpose. The enemy's attacks, for the first time, began to miss their marks. "Now watch this," Chen continued, his eyes gleaming. "This is a maneuver we called the feigned retreat, developed by humans thousands of years ago." The Alliance fleet appeared to break formation, withdrawing in disarray. The enemy, sensing victory, pursued, exactly as Chen had predicted. As they charged forward, the Alliance ships suddenly wheeled around, catching the enemy in a massive three-dimensional version of an ancient pincer movement. "Impossible," breathed General Killer as enemy ships began to fall. "You turned their own chaos against them." "Not impossible," Chen corrected, continuing to adapt the fleet's movements. "Just forgotten." Humanity learned these lessons the hard way, through countless battles on Earth. We never forgot them. As the battle continued, Chen demonstrated one ancient Earth tactic after another, adapted for space warfare. The double envelopment of Hannibal at Cannae became a sphere of destruction in 3 dimensions. The Swiss pike square transformed into an impenetrable defensive formation of capital ships. Each maneuver, developed through blood and necessity on Earth, found new life among the stars. Hour by hour, the tide turned. The enemy, faced with warfare principles they had never encountered, began to falter. Their chaos met humanity's ordered disorder, and found itself wanting. "I don't understand," Admiral Zexthor admitted as the enemy finally began to retreat. "How could tactics developed for ground combat on one planet work so well in space?" Chen smiled grimly. "Because true warfare isn't about technology or terrain. It's about understanding the fundamental principles of combat, principles humanity spent millennia discovering and perfecting. We didn't just study warfare, Admiral. We lived it. We breathed it. We evolved with it." The bridge crew watched in awe as the last enemy ships fled the system. Humanity's first major contribution to Alliance military doctrine had just saved an entire star system. "There's something else you should know," Chen added quietly. "What you just saw, those were basic tactical principles that every human military officer learns. We have thousands more where those came from." The implications weren't lost on anyone present. Humanity hadn't just preserved their martial knowledge. They had created a vast library of combat wisdom, waiting to be adapted to new battlefields and challenges. As the Alliance fleet regrouped, Admiral Zexthor made a decision that would change the course of galactic military history. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, I want you to establish a new department at the Alliance Military Academy. It's time we learned what humanity has been trying to teach us." The age of human military wisdom had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The holographic reconstruction of ancient Earth filled the grand chamber of the Galactic Historical Society. Representatives from across known space had gathered for what promised to be a revolutionary presentation on the origins of warfare itself. After humanity's stunning victory at Proxima, understanding their martial heritage had become the galaxy's highest priority. Dr. Elena Santos, Earth's foremost military historian, stood before the assembled aliens, her weathered face illuminated by the swirling hologram of prehistoric Earth. "You've all been asking the wrong question," she began. "The question isn't how humans became warriors. The question is, how could we have become anything else?" The hologram zoomed in on ancient Africa, showing early humans facing prehistoric predators. "Look at our cradle of civilization. Every other sentient species evolved as either apex predators or specialized defenders. But humans, we started as prey." The audience watched, transfixed, as the hologram showed early humans dealing with an endless series of threats: saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, rival tribes, harsh climates, and natural disasters. "We weren't the strongest, fastest, or most naturally armed species," Santos continued. "We had to become warriors because the alternative was extinction. Every human innovation, from the first stone tools to nuclear fusion, came from our drive to survive in a world that seemed designed to destroy us." The images shifted, showing the progression of human warfare through the ages. But unlike previous military presentations, this one focused on the environmental and social pressures that drove each development. "Take the development of ranged weapons," Santos explained. "Other species see them as a way to engage enemies from safety. For us, they were originally a means to hunt prey that could easily kill us in close combat. We learned warfare through necessity, not choice." Professor Ezexanil raised a tendril. "But surely once humans established dominance over their environment, this drive should have diminished." Santos laughed softly. "That's the fascinating part. By the time we conquered our natural predators, we had developed something unique in the galaxy: creative paranoia. We never stopped preparing for new threats, even when we couldn't see them." The hologram showed the progression of human military installations, from primitive walls to modern orbital defense platforms. "We fortified against threats that didn't exist yet. We developed countermeasures for weapons no one had invented. We war-gamed scenarios that seemed impossible, including first contact," someone in the audience noted.